This is a beginner watercolor tutorial covering paper and brushes. Watercolor is a beautiful and versatile medium, but it can be unforgiving if you don't have the right tools. So the most important tools are paper and brushes. Watercolor paper is a little heavier than typical print paper or even mixed media paper. This one in particular I'm using is 140 pounds. It's by a company called Artisto. I was gifted this, and so I was going to use this for this video. And generally, mixed media paper is cheaper than watercolor paper. Watercolor paper can be pressed, and it has a texture to it, and it's a little bit more durable. Mixed media paper, which is lighter weight paper, is a good option as well, as opposed to just buying a bunch of watercolor paper. You can see when you look at mixed media paper versus watercolor paper that there's more texture in the watercolor paper, which looks really great when you actually start painting on it. But mixed media paper, some will surprise you. So I'm not opposed to using mixed media paper for my own stuff, for sketches and stuff, and just for fun if you're experimenting. Here, if you look in the light, you can kind of see the watercolor paper has a little bit of a texture to it, which stands out. Generally, the heavier your paper is, the less likely it is to warp when you start actually putting water on it. With respect to brushes, you have to think of watercolor brushes like an ink pen. An ink pen has a tip and has a well inside it full of ink. The tip of the brush is kind of like the tip of a pen in that water fills it, and that's what you put on the page. So you have to think about it like almost like a writing utensil, especially when you get to smaller brushes like this little one. Think of it like it's a pen. And you can basically load it up with pigment and have a little bit of water on it, and it's drawing on the page with the color. With the larger brushes, because they hold so much more water and they can hold so much more pigment, those are basically used as wash brushes to put on a lot of color and pigment at once for like a background or for a sky or for filling large areas in with color. It's good to experiment. That's basically what I'm doing here. I'm taking different brushes, loading them with water, and then pulling some pigment, some colored pigment off of these little watercolor cubes and just drawing with them, writing with them. I have a bunch of crummy brushes here, but a lot of people will buy brand new brushes that are clean. They keep them clean, they maintain them, and that's totally up to you in terms of what you're trying to accomplish. I would recommend, if you're doing washes, buying brand new brushes as opposed to using secondhand brushes or older brushes. Here just now I was twisting the tip of the paintbrush to kind of get different widths and different weights to see how the stroke works and how the brush works. With really crummy brushes, you'll see that it has these imperfections, which kind of give your line more character. Here's a zoom in of some of the washes and some of the lines that I've done. So this is a very clean brush. This is a pretty new brush, very clean. And I'm doing long, big strokes with the water and the pigment. And it gives me a nice, even wash on here. And I'm also, right now, this is the watercolor paper, so you can kind of see the little grooves and the texture in the paper as the pigment kind of gets caught up in there and stops flowing. That's really what I was describing as the big difference between mixed media paper and watercolor paper. There's just a lot of character in watercolor paper because it gives you this nice textured effect that a lot of people like. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more watercolor tutorials.